Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A few announcements. Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi rajiun. There is a fire and 3 children died in Louisiana. So please pray for them, inshallah. And couple of dua requests. Sister Zafrin Chaudhary, who is going through the cancer, is requesting dua for her husband Kabil Chaudhary, who is having emergency heart surgery also. Also, Amit Yunus is still in coma after cycling accident. Please make dua for them, please. Few program, Allen Masjid Medical Clinic 924, which is Saturday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. You must register before you come to see doctor. Bagels and Brotherhood on 917, which is tomorrow morning at 6:30 a.m. with our Imam ARB. Burger and Shake 9:30, 5:30 p.m. This time Shake will be Mikhail Smith. Will be, as you know, that we start cooking burger after Asr, and then Shake part start after Maghrib. Dawa workshop taught by Dr. Sabil Ahmed will be on 9:24, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. right here. Father-son dress up Qiyam, which is the same 9:24. But after Isha, 9:30 to 11:30 p.m., please register if you want to bring your son. Kahoot Family Night, 9:23 between Maghrib and Isha. And normally Imam ARB give away a gift card on that. There is a program for youth, Seeds, a weekly study covering the basic of Islam and what it means to be Muslim for ages 16 plus with Mufti Nauman Ahmed Khan, each Wednesday, 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. And also we have our regular weekly program. That's basically Jazakallah khair.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون وقال تعالى وابتغ فيما آتاك الله الدار الآخرة ولا تنس نصيبك من الدنيا وأحسن كما أحسن الله إليك ولا تبغي الفساد في الأرض إن الله لا يحب المفسدين Dear brothers and respected sisters, one of the things that we think about for ourselves and for those who are parents, for our children, or if you're grandparents, for your grandchildren, is how do we become and how do we stay strong, firm Muslims? Not just that we are Muslims and we do the actions and the requirements of our faith, but how do we ensure that we are firm believers, strong believers? And one of the ways that we can do that is if we understand and appreciate the beauty of Islam. And that not just from one aspect of worship, but from all different aspects of our faith. We know that our faith covers all aspects of our life, and we need to see the beauty in all of those aspects of our life. And one of the areas that I feel it sometimes isn't really covered as much, and we don't really talk about its beauty, is within the Islamic economic system within our lives. And when we talk about Islamic economic system, one of the questions that comes up is, well, why do we need an Islamic economic system? Like, what's wrong with the economic system that we live under? And isn't this system fine? It seems to be working for us. Well, we should look at, is the current economic system fine? Is it fine that the student debt crisis exceeds $1.4 trillion and impacts 44 million people in the US? That's 1 in 6 adults. And that it grows about $3,000 per second? Or is it fine that 70% of college seniors at nonprofit schools graduate with a debt? And that's 90% of students pursuing 2-year degrees at for-profit schools. Or that we have a government that is in a $30 trillion national debt. And that debt grows $45,000 per second. So you think of how much it's gone up between the time we started the khutbah until now. And the question comes, well, what if we take out some of the riba-based, the interest-based loans, out of the system? Isn't the rest of it fine? And we should look at it and say, is it fine? Is it fine that the top 1% of Americans hold 32% of the total US net worth? And the next 9% hold 38%, another 38% of the total wealth. Meaning that the top 10% own 70% of the US net worth, while the bottom 50% only hold 2%. Is it fine that the top 1% of US households have 15 times more wealth than the bottom 50% combined? And is it fine that 95% of the economic recovery, since the recovery started in 2009, went to just the top 1% of Americans? It's not fine. That system isn't fine. There must be a better system. And there is a better system. And that's the Islamic economic system. And we need an Islamic economic system because it is a necessary part of civilization. It's necessary for people to interact, for people to have codependencies. We say our deen is a complete way of life, and which means that it must surely address this necessary aspect of our life. And Islam doesn't simply address ritual acts of worship and leaves people to do whatever they want within their wealth and within their finances. Right? This was a misconception that some of the previous nations had. Allah SWT mentions in Surah Hud, قالوا يا شعيب صلاتك تأمرك أن نترك ما يعبد آباؤنا أو أن نفعل في أموالنا ما نشاء إنك لأنت الحليم الرشيد. That the people of Shu'aib, they said, why is your religion telling us what we should do in our wealth? That what does religion have to do with what we do within our wealth? And they had this misconception that religion didn't get involved in personal finances. And that's that's obviously wrong. We have an Islamic economic system that we need to understand so that we can appreciate the beauty, the justice, the thoroughness of our deen. And while this topic is quite vast, I want to address first how Islam encourages financial prosperity. And second, how the Islamic economic system then facilitates that financial prosperity. And it does this based off of certain principles. And those principles are that one, it must work for every individual, man or woman, rich or poor, experienced or inexperienced, the villager to the urbanite, everyone. And second, that it must create balance between capital and labor. Third, that it must destroy all forms of exploitation, deception, corruption, and such. And fourth, that it must prevent the concentration of wealth within just a few. And fifth, it must provide a financial safety net. If you look in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that these resources that we have within this world have been created for us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, هُوَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ لَكُمْ مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who is created for you, meaning for us, whatever is in the earth. وَسَخَّرَ لَكُمْ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا مِّنْهُ إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Allah mentions that He subjected these things for us, created and subjected them for whom? For us. These are created for us. It is the fadl, the bounty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has created for us. And unless and outside of any specific dini obligations that we have, we are encouraged to seek out from this fadl, this bounty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu mentions in Surah Al-Jumu'ah, an example of this. Allah subhanahu mentions that يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِذَا نُودِيَ لِلصَّلَاةِ مِنْ يَوْمِ الْجُمُعَةِ فَاسْعَوْا إِلَى ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ وَذَرُوا الْبَيْعَ ذَلِكُمْ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ إِن كُنتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. That Allah mentions that when the adhan for Jumu'ah has been given, then leave your financial transactions and leave your businesses and leave your work and go for salah. But Allah then mentions فَإِذَا قُضِيَتِ الصَّلَاةُ فَانْتَشِرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَابْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ وَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. But when the salah is finished, when your dini obligations are taken care of, then go out into the land and seek from the bounty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if we are seeking financial prosperity, we are seeking nothing except that which is the bounty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created for us. And there's nothing wrong in doing so. And while there is an Islamic welfare system as well, which we'll see later, it doesn't encourage people to rely on it. Islam actually encourages people to create independence and financial stability for themselves. The Prophet mentioned that مَا أَكَلَ أَحَدٌ طَعَامًا قَطُّ خَيْرًا مِنْ أَنْ يَأْكُلَ مِنْ عَمَلِ يَدِهِ وَإِنَّ نَبِيَّ اللَّهِ دَاوُدَ عَلَيْهِ السَّلَامُ كَانَ يَأْكُلُ مِنْ عَمَلِ يَدِهِ رواه البخاري. The Prophet mentioned that nobody eats anything better than that which is the fruit of their own labor. Islam encourages financial prosperity and creating that financial stability and independence. Hence, we see that when the Muhajirun, they made hijrah, they left Mecca and they went to Medina, they left everything behind. Right? They left all of their wealth, everything behind. And when they went to Medina Munawwara, the Prophet created what was known as mu'akhat, right? Brotherhood and sisterhood between the Muhajirun and the Ansar of Medina. And the Muhajirun, the Ansar, they offered half of their wealth to the Muhajirun. But we see then like Abdurrahman ibn Auf, radiallahu anhu, for example, where he didn't accept that half of that wealth, and rather he said, show me where the market is. And then he got started on building his own finances. Okay? Islam encourages financial prosperity, and its financial framework facilitates that prosperity. Right? We see, for example, in a society, on one hand, you have people with wealth, but they lack the skills to run a business. And on the other hand, you have people who have skills, but they lack the capital and the investment to do the business. Within a capitalist society, you then have the rich give out interest-bearing loans to the poor, where now they're guaranteed a return irrespective of how that business does. And even if that person, the business doesn't go well, that poor person will then suffer the consequences, and the rich person is guaranteed a return no matter what. Whereas within an Islamic system, it creates certain type of partnerships like mudaraba, and there's different partnerships where one party makes the investment of money and the other party makes the investment of skills. And if the business prospers, they both benefit. It creates that system of fairness. The Islamic economic system is set up to allow for individual prosperity. It encourages that individual prosperity. But unlike pure capitalism, which is purely profit-driven, the Islamic economic system works within certain ethics, system of ethics, and just practices that govern overall economics and ensures individuals' well-being. Within a capitalist society, each party within a transaction is concerned about maximizing their own profit. The Islamic economic system encourages benefit for both parties. Allah mentions, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ, the believers are brothers. Right? When you're interacting with somebody else, another believer, you're interacting with your brother, and you want good for your brother like you want good for yourself. Right? It prohibits, or the Islamic economic system provides an asset and services-based economy. It prohibits profiting via risk-free investments where one party benefits even to the detriment of another party simply on basis of advancing money and because they had that wealth. Allah talks about يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا تَأْكُلُوا الرِّبَا أَضْعَافًا مُضَاعَفَةً وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ وَاتَّقُوا النَّارَ الَّتِي أُعِدَّتْ لِلْكَافِرِينَ وَأَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ. Allah talks about leaving behind and leaving this aspect of interest and riba, and such that you do that out of fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and out of fear of the hellfire, and this is something that you will then get the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through. That any type of injustice to either party, even if the two parties agree to the injustice, is not allowed within Islam. Even if the two parties agree. Even if the two parties agree to do, for example, a riba, an interest-based transaction, Islam will still prohibit that injustice, even if the parties agree to it. Also mentions, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَذَرُوا مَا بَقِيَ مِنَ الرِّبَا إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ فَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلُوا فَأْذَنُوا بِحَرْبٍ مِنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ وَإِن تُبْتُمْ فَلَكُمْ رُءُوسُ أَمْوَالِكُمْ لَا تَظْلِمُونَ وَلَا تُظْلَمُونَ. Says that leave riba, you will not be oppressed, nor will you oppress. Right? This is a form of injustice that you cannot even mutually agree to enter upon. Islam completely prohibits that injustice. It sets up a healthy market that removes ambiguities and ensures transparency to prevent any party from being taken advantage of. Okay? The transactions cannot have ambiguities that lead to disputes, or that leads to one party taking advantage of another. It allows for a free market and allows for pricing to be organic based off supply and demand. And it prevents market manipulation, right? For example, false inflation of prices and demand. We hear in the news about so-and-so and these different people getting arrested for pumping and dumping stocks, right? Falsely inflating the prices and such. But Islam from the very beginning prohibited this. The Prophet mentioned, Imam Bukhari narrates, is that la tanajashu, right? Preventing exactly that and saying وَكُونُوا عِبَادَ اللَّهِ إِخْوَانًا. That don't do these unethical business practices, because that goes against being brothers with one another. Right? It ties the economics to the aspect of being believers, being brothers to one another. Okay? Any type of deception is forbidden, and the Muslims are encouraged that when you're doing your transactions, you don't just think about the dunyawi aspect of it. Know that there's an ukhrawi aspect of it, that there is an impact of those transactions in the hereafter as well. That whatever financial transaction that we deal with, we always think of it from what's the impact of that to one's akhirah. Allah SWT mentioned in the Quran, وَيْلُ لِلْمُطَفِّفِينَ الَّذِينَ إِذَا اكْتَالُوا عَلَى النَّاسِ يَسْتَوْفُونَ وَإِذَا كَالُوهُمْ أَوْ وَزَنُوهُم يُخْسِرُونَ أَلَا يَظُنُّ أُولَٰئِكَ أَنَّهُم مَّبْعُوثُونَ لِيَوْمٍ عَظِيمٍ يَوْمَ يَقُومُ النَّاسُ لِرَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. That talking about those people who are unjust and unfair in their transaction, Allah mentions, do these people not recognize that they're going to be resurrected and they're going to be asked about this? You're going to be asked about how you dealt with one another in your financial dealings, right? It gives both parties sufficient and ample contractual rights and fairness, the ability that to prevent buyer's remorse, that somebody can have conditions that say that you have a certain number of time to look at it and you have a return policy. That if somebody is buying something that they haven't seen, you're buying something online, that there is an automatic by default right that if the item looks different than how you saw it online, that you have the right to return it. Or that there's an automatic by default right within a transaction that if the item is defective, you have a right to return. Or that you can have a condition that says that somebody who, for example, isn't very experienced, to prevent being taken advantage of, can have a right within a contract that says that if they're sold a product that is below standard, or if they're sold something that is above market value, that they have the right to cancel that transaction because they were taken advantage of. It provides rights of recourse in any form of deception, any form of unethical practices. It allows, the Islamic economic system allows for individuals to prosper in an ethical, just manner where both parties benefit. And they're both happy and content with that transaction. Allah also mentions that يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا تَأْكُلُوا أَمْوَالَكُمْ بَيْنَكُمْ بِالْبَاطِلِ إِلَّا أَن تَكُونَ تِجَارَةً عَنْ تَرَاضٍ مِنْكُمْ. That there must be tarad, there must be happiness, and there must be satisfaction from both parties. And while it allows for that free and fair market, it also sets up a system where the Muslim government will also ensure that there's freedom and fairness in the market as well. The Muslim government has certain obligations as well. And it has to ensure the well-being of its subjects. The Prophet mentioned that كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. Every single person, right? Every single person sitting here, all of us, right? We're like shepherds. Right? There's certain people whose well-being we are responsible for. Our spouses, our children, our parents, whoever is dependent on us, we are responsible for their well-being. And the Prophet mentioned that وَالْإِمَامُ رَاعٍ وَالْمَسْئُولُ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. And the leaders are also responsible for their subjects, and they'll be asked about that. And hence, the Muslim government will ensure that certain sales and certain transactions do not violate communal well-being. The Prophet mentioned, for example, that أنها رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أن يبيع حاضر لبادر وإن كان أخاه ليبيه أمه. Imam Bukhari narrates this, that the Prophet forbade certain type of transactions where there were unethical practices being taken, where people were being taken advantage of because of the lack of awareness of the market. The Prophet forbade those practices. And one of the rights of, or the obligations of a Muslim government, one of the responsibilities is to ensure that wealth doesn't concentrate between a set of few people. Allah mentions that ما أفاء الله على رسوله من أهل القرى فلله وللرسول ولذي القربى واليتامى والمساكين وابن السبيل كي لا يكون دولة بين الأغنياء منكم وما آتاكم الرسول فخذوه وما نهاكم عنه فانتهوا واتقوا الله إن الله شديد العقاب. Allah mentions for certain types of wealth that they should be distributed in a certain manner, and Allah mentions a principle there. It says لكي لا يكون دولة بين الأغنياء منكم, so that wealth doesn't concentrate within just a few set of people, right? That 1% concept doesn't exist, right? The wealth should not get concentrated within a few, within a set of people. And this Islam sets up that system that prevents these things from happening. And there's more details we can go into in the interest of time. We won't, and how Islam sets up that financial safety net and prevents people from having these sudden expenses that can lead to financial ruin, right? That we see here in the U.S., for example, there's $140 billion in unpaid medical debt, right? What happens when people can't make those payments and the debt collectors come and the interest starts accruing? What do you think happens to people's financial well-being? People get ruined because of medical reasons. Okay? So, Islam encourages and facilitates financial prosperity. But people are not purely driven on profit. Okay? They must keep certain principles in mind. The concept of Muslim brotherhood, that we do not want just benefit for ourselves, we want benefit for the other party as well. That we don't want to benefit at the expense of the other party. We want to benefit with the other party. Right? We don't want to climb the economic ladder standing on the necks of other people. We want to climb that ladder alongside with other people. And that there will be accountability for what we do in the hereafter. Allah mentions, ثُمَّ لَتُسْأَلُنَّ يَوْمَئِذٍ عَنِ النَّعِيمِ. That you will be asked in the akhirah about those benefits. That benefit, Allah, we mentioned, the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the wealth, that's the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we have been told to seek. Allah will also ask us about that on the Day of Judgment. And the Islamic economic system operates with certain principles, right, that we talked about. And one of the surah, the verse from Surah Al-Qasas summarizes this well. Allah mentions, وَابْتَغِ فِي مَا آتَاكَ اللَّهُ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةَ وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا وَأَحْسِنْ كَمَا أَحْسَنَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْكَ وَلَا تَبْغِ الْفَسَادَ فِي الْأَرْضِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُفْسِدِينَ. Allah mentions three points here. First, that وَابْتَغِ فِي مَا آتَاكَ اللَّهُ, right? Seek in that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you. First, that realize that whatever you have, know that it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Second, وَابْتَغِ فِيمَا أَتَاكَ اللَّهُ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةِ. Seek from that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you, الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةِ, right? The eternal abode. To ensure that however we interact, we're always mindful that there's an ukhrawi consequence, a consequence in the hereafter. And then finally, Allah mentions that, وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيا وَأَحْسِنْ كَمَا أَحْسَنَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْكَ وَلَا تَبْغِ الْفَسَادَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. Right? Benefit from what Allah has given you. Right? Don't forget your share of the dunya, but we must ensure that's acquired properly and must be spent properly. Okay? There's a lot to discuss on this topic, and it's a dense topic, but there's three things I just want us to walk away with. One, recognize that there is an Islamic economic system as well. Second, appreciate that it is a superior system than any other system that exists. By nature of it being part of a deen, we recognize that it is a superior system. And third, we must learn what that system is and see how we can apply to whatever extent we can apply it within our lives. There's a famous principle that مَا لَا يُدْرَكُ كُلُّهُ لَا يُتْرَكُ كُلُّهُ. Whatever you cannot attain and accomplish in its entirety is not left in its entirety either. And if we do that and we understand all aspects of our deen and the beauty in all aspects of our deen, then we can see the true beauty of Islam, and that will then ensure that we become stronger Muslims, inshallah, and that's beneficial for ourselves, for our children. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for tawfiq to see the true beauty of this deen and to practice on it. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for us to implement all aspects of our deen within our lives. وأقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروا إنه الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي هدى والصلاة والسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى خصوصا على سيد الرسل وخاتم الأنبياء وعلى آله وصحبه الذين اجتبى أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين وذل الشرك والمشركين ودمر أعداءك أعداء الدين اللهم انصر المسلمين المستضعفين في كل مكان اللهم اكفنا بحلالك عن حرامك وأغننا بفضلك عمن سواك اللهم إنا نسألك العفو والعافية والمعافاة الدائمة في الدين والدنيا والآخرة عباد الله رحمكم الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون فاذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون أقيموا الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قام الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
Please ensure that you're standing shoulder to shoulder and their heels are on the line, and that the saf in front of you on the right end and on the left side, on both sides, is full. Please ensure that you close any gaps. Allahu Akbar. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. قد أفلح من تزكى وذكر اسم ربه فصلى بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. ألهاكم التكاثر حتى زرتم المقابر كلا سوف تعلمون ثم كلا سوف تعلمون كلا لو تعلمون علم اليقين لترون الجحيم ثم لترونها عين اليقين ثم لتسألن يومئذ عن النعيم. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
hello, assalamu alaikum. Microphone testing, 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 testing. 1, 2, 3. He was using this, yeah. Okay. Hello, hello, microphone testing, testing. 1, 2, 3.